Welcome to Belief, Being, and Beyond with your host, Granddaughter Crow. Hi everybody, Granddaughter Crow here with yet another episode of Belief, Being, and Beyond. And I went to the holy heavens to find you guys a wonderful gift. This is the first time on the show that we are going to be talking about archangels and saints. And we have the wonderful author here, Margaret Ann Lembo, with her newest book. Yeah, newest book. Let me kind of give you a lowdown because there's a lot, and then we'll get into the newest book. So we have Margaret Ann Lembo. She's an award-winning author, aromatherapist, which you'll see a lot of that work in her books, and the owner of the Crystal Garden. We might even talk about that a little bit. I think it's in Florida, and it sounds like a lovely place to visit. So Margaret Ann has authored like 11 plus because we're still in the workings, people. Still more things coming up, as well as 7 oracle affirmation decks to include chakra awakening, essential guides to crystals, minerals, stones, essential guides to aromatherapy, vibration healing, anything that you would want. And today we're going to have Margaret Ann here with her latest book, The Essential Guide to Archangels and Saints, released by Llewellyn Worldwide at the end of last year. Welcome, Margaret Ann. It is such an honor. I have been waiting to have you on my show, and I've been looking at your book and seeing you online. And welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking me. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to meet you.
Well, this is going to be a lovely conversations. Now, I said the heavenly realms, but I guess also earthly realms with the archangels and the saints, because there's a correlation between there. And not to jump in too fast, but I have people that come on the show that work with a lot of different, not only pathways such as maybe Wicca or shamanism or voodoo or hoodoo, but also a lot of different deities. Right? And so you
Yes.
have the land whites and the blah blah blahs and the Orisha and all of this. And now we're going to come full circle to go back to the archangels and the saints, which is something that I think a lot of us pull in some thoughts about our childhood because a lot of people were either born Catholic upbringing, Christian upbringing, or like in yours, I think Roman Catholic upbringing. And you help us to take those jewels and not throw the baby out with the bathwater and bring them into the metaphysics. And I know that I might just make a bunch of assumptions about you, but in looking at you, reading this book, and watching you online, I'm like, oh, what healing can we do by bringing those jewels of the ways of the church and bringing them into a metaphysical style? So, am I right about that?
You are. It's like it's important to me because then you used a term that I like to use in regard to being born and raised Catholic is I didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's that exact expression that I use on a regular basis
Yeah.
because that was the foundation. And I had a very spiritual experience with that at growing up. So mine, when people used to say to me when I first like started my store back 37 years ago, people would always say, "Oh, I'm a recovering Catholic." And I didn't understand because my I had a very good experience. Mine was positive, and my mother, although she was very devout Roman Catholic woman, she was very metaphysical. She taught me telepathy and connecting with the plant kingdom and how to communicate with plants. And so there was so many different aspects of like more metaphysical teachings that were integrated into my consciousness at a young age. So maybe that's what opened me more to having a more mystical Catholic experience?
I, I absolutely love it because I just kind of want to toss this out there to the listeners. If you feel like you or ever said or heard or identified with the recovering Catholic scenario, this would be a very good healing guide for you not to throw the babies out with the bathwater because, and we'll get into it a little bit more about the essential guide to archangels and saints, because not only do you give us like an encyclopedia of all of this, and I don't even know how long this took you, but you also give us the correlations towards like stones. You're an aromatherapist, so like, oils, essential oils, astrological signs,
Yep.
affirmations, all of these things, prayers. And so I think that watching this book, if I were a fly on the wall, I would love to watch people getting this book and healing that part of themselves that they threw out and now it empowers them. What do you think about
That
that?
sounds like a great idea. I mean, when you think about these, like I'm sure you saw how some of these saints, and when you read through it, these saints went through such dramatic, ecstatic visions and such profound knowledge of connecting with the higher realms. That that's just these were like, I could you imagine having them as a friend and them saying, "Oh, I met with Jesus today. He gave me his sacred heart." You
Right,
would think that we're a lunatic.
right, right.
But the power that all these years later, because they can create miracles, so they've committed in some sense, they've committed to be a continuation here on the planet energetically, that we can pray to them or pray to God to send them to help us with our life, that gives us so much. And then the archangels, I just adore the angelic realm. I've always been connected from a very young age,
I
and that
love
to get to know them, to answer your question, even though you didn't literally ask it, but you sort of did. Oh my gosh, it took me so long to write this book
yes.
because I started before the pandemic, way
Oh,
before the pandemic. And then the pandemic came and I had to focus on like building my website for my store and try to figure out how to still maintain.
right.
But it still takes a lot of research, is my point also. This isn't stuff that I just had stored in my brain. I had to really research each of these archangels and the saints as well.
Yeah, I can, and that was a question because that was my next one. I was going to be like, how did you do this? I mean, it's basically like you're kind of like Daniel Webster, where you put together. I
In a
literally,
way.
it is an encyclopedia to me. I will be referencing this. So here's a question for you. How would you then describe an archangel versus maybe an angel, and then how would you identify a saint versus maybe, I don't know, good people?
Mm.
You know?
Okay. Yeah, I do. I do. So, like, an archangel has some kind of a designation that has been determined, by I'm not sure exactly who, to be honest with you, uh, to be part of like the dominions and the powers and the virtues, this hierarchy, this angelic hierarchy. And they're in charge of different things. Raziel may be more about intuition, where Sabriel is more about deflecting jealousy, and Barakael is all about blessings. So these have very specific purposes. And the similarity, though, I'll call it, because I do have a book that I wrote called The Essential Guide to Everyday Angels. So those are the angels that when I was little, that I'd move over on my chair to let it come sit next to me. Like I'd imagine I had an angel next to me, usually a guardian angel, but I like to look at everyday angels as like it could be they're going to help me get through this traffic jam, they're going to keep me safe when I'm feeling nervous, they're going to help me with my communication. So I just name them angel of communication, angel of whoever, like depending on the subject. And then we're just calling on that higher level of vibration to come assist us with our life. There's a lot of similarities, except that the ones that are everyday angels aren't like known in either apocryphal or regular Bible type, theological scripts, let's
Ah,
say. The
right.
archangels you will find in theology,
Yeah.
the other type is more of a metaphysical.
I love
approach.
that. I love that.
And the saints, um, in the way that they've been determined by the church, they first have to be, and I'm not a super expert, so even though I wrote a book about it, you would think I should be, but yes, they have to be beatified first, and then they get canonized. And from what I researched and found out, it appears that there has to be evidence of specific miracles where people had miraculous heal.
Wow.
Usually it's miraculous healing. It has to do with healings of physical healing. But sometimes they bilocate, sometimes like Padre Pio, he is more contemporary. I think he passed in the 80s, maybe. He had the stigmata. He had the markings of wherever Christ had those markings from being I was going to say hung on, well, he was hung on a cross,
Yeah.
nailed to a cross. He would come up with the stigmata, and there's this number of other saints that had that. And how does a saint differ from a good person? I guess the difference is that they're not in the eyes of the Catholic Church being beatified, or maybe they haven't had any miracles the way that we look at them the other way. But
I love it.
we're often good people are miraculous to be around, no?
I do. I love that answer, Margaret, and I love that answer. And okay, so getting into the archangels a little bit, there's some little things that I found in here beyond all of the big things. Um, you talk about how the archangel's name ends with an EL or
Yeah,
L. Like
yes,
you've got Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, all of those. And I have also wondered, why? So why do they end with an EL?
because they are part of the Elohim, which is a grouping of angelic beings or higher level consciousness. And I wish I knew more about the Elohim, but I've always had that word as part of my consciousness, Elohim. And I was born and raised Catholic, but I always want to say Elohim, Adonai, and I want to feel like I can keep going,
El
but I don't know the rest.
Shaddai,
Do you know it?
Jehovah. Yeah, oh yeah. I
Yeah.
I was I was raised very with a lot of theology. My parents met in Christian seminary school in more of Christian reform, but I did know all of memorizing all the different Hebrew names of God to include Elohim, El Shaddai, all of those, God is with us and all of that. But
Oh,
if I would have studied a little bit more, I'm almost wondering if Elohim is a certain aspect of God that is more androgynous and or they. I don't know. People don't quote me
oh,
on this,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
They are. Definitely androgynous. And all
okay.
these archangels are androgynous. We may say him. In fact, that was a work that as a writing a publication that I had to go back through and make sure, because it's easy to say Archangel Michael, da 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 da, and he, la 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 la, you continue the sentence. And I had to go back and either change it to a they, them, or just re-say this archangel, because they're androgynous. They're not masculine, they're not feminine, and they're really not looking like a human being by any stretch of the imagination. They are not. We think that that's to make it comfortable for us, but they're actually beings of light.
Like pillars of light.
Beings, pillars. I'll go with pillars. Works for me too.
Because one
They're
time,
they're beings of light, and they come in on different rays of colors. And of course, they have different purposes to what they do. And that's why it's easy for me to see the matching vibration with an essential oil, or what gemstone would vibrate similarly to that particular archangel or saint, because I do it throughout the whole book, because that's I kind of think in matching vibrations, like and I feel like it's a good way to learn, to get to know and understand a spiritual concept, is to match it with something else. It's like, oh, if this is like lapis lazuli, then that means my intuition is activated. For people who are rock hounds would, relate to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I wouldn't say I'm a rock hound, but I certainly have had I would have a fun time at your shop.
Well, you would.
100%. The Crystal Garden, check it out.
Thank
Also
you.
for you guys, um, you can find Margaret online, www. Ann Lembo, Lembo, and I will put that in the notes. So you're in Florida. You have a crystal shop in Florida.
I
Like I know
do.
people who are in Florida or
Yeah,
who will be visiting. Could you just kind of let us know a
I
little
would
bit
love
about where to
to.
find you and what you got going on?
Absolutely. That's so nice of you to ask. I opened the store in August of 1988. And
Wow.
and we're in Palm Beach County. It's the name of the city is Boynton Beach, but for reference, we're like 15 minutes from West Palm Beach, maybe 20 minutes from Boca Raton. We're like right on the East Coast. My store is like a half a city block from the Intracoastal Waterway. We're beachy. It's a beach town. And it's a the store is thriving with love and a place where people can come and feel good, and people are usually in awe because of the magnitude of how many crystals and different spiritual tools are available at my store. Books, incense, candles, sage, like you're a kid in a candy shop, kind of a metaphysical store.
I love that. So before we get on to talk a little bit more about stones, because I know that you have another book coming out, the Little Book of Stones or something like that with Llewellyn, but I did want to ask you really quickly, do you ship out? Do you have like, could somebody order
Yes, all
from
the
your
time,
shop?
every day. Yes,
Okay, okay.
online at thecrystalgarden.com.
S-
And we also do a Facebook Live every Tuesday with the newest and greatest that just came in, kind of, hot off the UPS truck kind of merchandise. It's usually mostly gemstones, but also good books, new card decks, things of that nature. You know,
Okay,
new
so you
authors'
guys,
books. You have a book.
I have a
I got a Llewellyn email today, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's Granddaughter Crow right there in this email, and I'm going to talk to her later today. And I didn't know that until today. So congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So here's another thing. Oh, can you give us your Facebook social media? Because I think that there's going to be people wanting to hit that Facebook Live.
Oh,
Where
that
can
would
they
be
find
great.
you? Yeah.
It's just the Crystal Garden page. It's our the Crystal Garden. And if you find the one that has about 10 to 15,000 followers, we have an angel is our logo. You'll see our logo.
Yours.
And or you can find it through my Margaret Ann Lembo page, either my page as an author or me as a person.
Right.
Well, we
Okay.
also put stuff up on TikTok. So the Crystal Garden store on TikTok, we put it on Instagram as well. It's just that the actual Facebook Live event where you can be live with us and say, turn that one around. I want to see it closer, things like that, that's the Facebook page.
I love it. And for you listeners, we will have all of the social media handles and websites in the notes. Um, so here, just for the listeners, Margaret Ann, you could listen if you want. In her book, the one that she just released, The Essential Guide to Archangels and Saints, and we're just digging into it a little bit. We could go on for hours, but she does have like stones and also essential oils to connect. Wouldn't it be fun to order the stones and crystal oils from her shop? Just saying, intention support the metaphysical community, right?
Thank you. That
Okay,
is so sweet of you to
it's
say.
it's true. Let's keep this going. Okay, so
Thank you.
you also have the Little Book of Crystals when with Llewellyn's Little Book of Crystals. Can you give
That's the
us?
next book coming out. It's called Llewellyn's Little Book of Crystals. It's coming out in September. It's finished, so it's already to the printers. And it's a short version of my big, heavy book, The Essential Guide to Crystals, Minerals, and Stones. And it's like going to be it's a very easy read. I just recently, you probably know you get your PDF and you read through to make sure everything looks good. And I just read through and I really love the way it was put together. It's like very pretty too. Not only is it good information, but it's a pretty little hardcover book.
Oh, you guys will have to check that out because crystals, crystals, crystals are so much fun. So here, I want to ask you, there's a point that you made in your book that I really stand with you on, and I'd love to hear more about your perspective. Free will and having to ask for help, not assuming the help, but also asking for the help, which kind of puts you to have a little skin in the game, little intention. What do you think about that?
A lot of skin in the game. Are you kidding? A lot of skin in the game, I say. So the idea behind inviting, invoking, asking for help, just like you might ask a friend, would you help me move? You don't think that your friend is going to do the moving. They're going to help carry a few things to the car, maybe, but they're not going to move you completely and you sit back and do nothing. So the idea is you have this intention, you know which archangel or saint or energetic beings, even essential oils, crystals, even animal totems that can come and assist, then that's just giving you amplifying the energy, increasing the vibration so that it's easier. Or you might get inspired with an idea of how to approach it a little different way. So they're dropping ideas. I like to look at it as co-orchestration, where there's like you're working together as a team between you and this saintly being or this angelic being.
I absolutely love that because it's kind of like adulting as a spiritual practitioner. When you're a baby, you expect everything to be handed to you and food and clothing. But we're adults, guys. We're spiritual adults
Mm.
responsible for our own intention and action and will. But yet we can co-orchestrate, right? Co-orchestrate with the assistance. And in your book, you actually show us a little bit about how to make a petition, like how to ask.
How to ask, because some people are not comfortable praying, and I didn't call it praying because some people aren't comfortable with the idea that you're going to pray. So you're asking for help, you're petitioning, and yeah, giving words, and then it's a start, and that way there's some a start to what you might say or write, because you could also write to your journal to your archangels or saints. Journaling is a powerful tool. That's how I think that's what got me writing, actually. Granddaughter Crow, I used to sit with my a journal and I would like think a question of how could I deal with this particular situation. And then I would just sit and wait for the information to come and I would just write and not censor it, which is really helpful when you're writing a book where you just like let flow of consciousness.
True, true, true. You got to
Yeah.
get that word count in there too.
Exactly.
But I absolutely love that because yeah, I am fine with the word prayer, but a lot of times I utilize a different way of saying that just so that it doesn't get lost in translation and I just kind of say something like communicating with the divine or
Yep.
exactly, but I think that that would be great to ask a question. What I used to do is ask a question in my journal and then go around my merry way. And then every once in a while, I'd write down these incredible, wonderful thoughts that I would have out of the blue. And then ultimately, they would be answering the question that I wrote a few days ago. So, yeah, I do that
Works.
same kind of absolutely, Margaret, and I do that same thing. So, since you were raised Roman Catholic, I was not. So I have never been to confession. However, there is something I would love to confess to you, Margaret
Oh,
Ann. I
what's
have
that?
never I have never petitioned a saint. I never knew how, and I think I might want to. How? do I do this? How do I approach without being like, oh, well, I'm a Navajo, raised Christian, converted to shamanism. Now I'm going to
Oh,
petition the saints. Like,
uh,
what does that
I
look
think
like? How do I build that
Oh
relationship?
yeah. See, like I have no problem connecting with Buddha or Kuan Yin. I feel like very strongly, Ganesha especially. And those are deities from other philosophies and spiritual traditions. So I guess it's a matter of they're just another friend, they're just from another come from place. They're just, so it's just not that everybody has access to this, whether you're a Navajo, whether you're Jewish, whether you're a Catholic, and I'm not even a practicing Catholic. I haven't been a practicing, like legit practicing Catholic for a gazillion years, but I didn't stop learning about the different saints and archangels. And also a prayer work that's ingrained in my consciousness, the rosary and certain prayers that I grew up with. And it's just an easy, almost like a mantra to go to get your focus into a contemplative state. So once you're in a contemplative state, then you can relax enough to clear your consciousness to allow for divine inspiration and ideas to come from the extraordinary to the very ordinary. Like it can be about very ordinary stuff. It doesn't have to be super woo-woo.
I love that. That was a mouthful. What you just said was just like, let's write a book about what you just said. I'll cut it into a short and rewind it for you guys. Okay, so here's another fun question. Okay, so I work with a lot of different deities, and to include Kuan Yin and Ganesh and all of that. Um, but every once in a while, when I'm praying to the divine as it reveals itself throughout history in many different cultures, the one thing that sometimes I feel like I want to say to them is, but I'm in human form. Give me a break. I need to sleep tonight. You're asking me to move mountains. Don't you understand? I am in human form. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, and that's not the question, but for me to talk to a saint that has been in human form and that understands my own journey actually kind of makes me feel a little bit more like, yeah, somebody's got my back that has been through the human experience like I have. What do
I
you
love
have to
that.
say about that? Because I know that in your book you do mention, the archangels, and I do want to talk about Metatron, and Enoch. I do want to talk about that.
Me
But
too.
I do think that it's very interesting because a lot of times I'm just like, but Spirit, I know you want me to do X, Y, and Z, but I need to get my battery in my car fixed. And the
Yeah.
holy hosts are like, go on your way and do this. And I'm just like, but I can't. I would need somebody to help me fix. So I thought praying to saints just feels comforting because I feel like they would kind of understand because they've been through the human experience.
I think that's a very valid point. There's empathy there that they can connect with, and we can connect with different saints for different reasons. So, like, let's say Hildegard von Bingen of Bingen from Germany. She was like an amazing trailblazer and was an empowered woman and worked as she was a theologian. She wrote plays. She got the priest to give her her own land so that she could keep her nuns from getting raped. Like she just did so many. She was such an empowered woman. So if you're on some project that you need that kind of strength behind you, I think that would be a beautiful one. Even Saint Bridget of Kildare, the Irish, she was probably more of a druid, but kind of transposed into Catholicism. And she got a bunch of land too. She told the bishop, "If why don't you just give me enough land so that I could, that covers, like whatever my cloak can cover, give me that land."
Yeah.
And so she had her people, like she might have had some nuns with her, people with her, and she said, "You take each and she ended up with acres of land. That was one of her miracles. So it's like like you have these opportunities to call on the vibration to amplify and create miracles in your life. And yes, the human aspect, I think, is very comforting. Absolutely empathetic.
I love that. So again, people, www Margaret Ann Limbo, check out all of the things and pick up this wonderful encyclopedia. Okay, so there's this other part. So we're talking about the archangels. And I I know the stories of Enoch and that he lived a very long time and that he betrothed and begat and all of these things and it's one of the fathers and all of that and Enoch walked with God. I remember that verse. And he was no more, they said. Enoch walked with God and he was no more. And so the translation throughout theology and the theologians are like I'm pretty sure the dude just ascended into heaven. We couldn't find his body. And I just was always like, wow, that's so cool. And then I learned about Metatron. And I'm like, oh, Metatron, Metatron's cube, and woo, the holy heavens, and just so much honor and respect. But there's a correlation between these two. Talk to us
Yeah,
about the correlation.
yes, there is. So Enoch and Isaiah were twin brothers, first of all. So Isaiah became Sandalphon. So the only two archangels that don't have El are Metatron and Sandalphon. Sandalphon. And then so Metatron ascended to heaven, and but when he returned, he did return. And I think he, like, from my conjecture, because that's all it can really be,
Sure.
is that he returned somehow using the cube, which was the Metatron's cube is actually more of a transport vehicle or a portal of which he could transfer through realms, because otherwise he would be no more, because he would be fried to go to the heavenly realm and
Oh,
to come
right,
back.
right,
Right? I mean, I
right.
think the vibration, it's like going right to the transformer and not plugging in at the 120 watts, yeah, So, so when he returned to Earth, then he was known as Metatron. And my assistant always says, it sounds like a transformer. But in a way, that's exactly. He
Yeah.
transformed. Metatron transformed from Enoch, who was what? Was he great, 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 great grandson of Noah or no,
Yeah.
Noah was the great, great, great grandson of Enoch.
Yeah.
And he's the one, and Metatron is the one that brought him the information on how to build the ark.
See, this all like makes a lot more sense once we can kind of get back to the jewels within all of this without some, buddy trying to like fix our Bible and make sure that it's
Yeah.
masculine. Sorry,
Yeah.
my point. Margaret Ann did not say that. Granddaughter Crow did. So anyway, what's really interesting is because when I did do a lot more studying about the archangels, and this is just off the cuff sideball, it was when I was studying the tree of life.
And I never studied that. I really have to someday. And that's a lot of archangels are on each one of those, right? On each one of the
Sephiroth,
trees.
yes,
Yeah.
and I believe that if I please again, I'm gonna have to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that Metatron is at the top and Sandalphon is at the bottom.
That makes sense to me. Because
Because
what it also reminds me of is that pole thing, like the Echo twins, like how they held the poles to hold the
yeah,
vibration to
okay, and they're twins.
and they're twins. And the Echo twins were too in the uh, what's her name? Spider Woman. It's children.
I
It's all, I feel like it's like so intertwined. It's just
it's
a different translation of the same information.
yeah, and it's like a different perspective. Like if you are raised this way, you can see this, and if you're raised on the other side of the earth, you see that. And then when you come together in conversation, you find the commonality and fill in a lot more pieces. Oh my goodness. So time flies. People
Yes.
definitely the essential guide to archangels and Saints by our award-winning author, Margaret Ann Lembo, and for taking the time also, the crystalgarden.com. Please bless the authors and the gatekeepers who've been bringing us this information since we were, well, we'll just say for a long time. And
I like that.
I know, right? So anyway, I'm trying to think, um, I have so many more notes, but I'm just like, what else do you want to share with us that maybe we didn't cover? Is there anything on your heart or your mind or something you want to say about the book or whatever, just a blessing or whatever you want?
So in generally, when someone like you asked me a question like that, one of the things that I really feel is important is for us to remember our true nature, which is love. And if we can remember that, then it doesn't matter if we're dealing with a rock, or we're dealing with a saint or an archangel or a Hindu deity or a Buddhist tradition, as long as we remain focused on being love as best as we can in our human form, then we will be happy all the days of our lives, and the people around us will feel that vibration and be able to feel joy and happiness, which is what we're supposed to be doing here on the planet, in addition to helping other people, is to be happy, to be love.
Thank you so much, Margaret Ann. And once again, margaretannlembo.com. People pick this up, even if you're not going to read it from front to back or anything like that. In fact, it's more for me, I'm just like, oh, this is going to be an encyclopedia. And I do hope that you guys do read it and move over it because there are so many archangels and saints that I had no idea. It basically is like, oh, here's a bunch of helpers. Now, what are you going to do? You want to pray? You want to do something in this world? Your heart, you're here for a reason. Get your helpers. Get your helpers to help you. Anyway, thank you guys so much for yet another episode of Belief Being and Beyond, going to the heavens and bringing them to earth, which is right inside of you. I love you guys so very much. Like, subscribe. Please share with somebody that you think might find this information, like, I don't know, healing, like we said at the beginning of the program. Anyway, I love you guys, and we will see you on the flippity flip.